One of the most exciting stories in history, the story of a people who set out from the barren plains to build an unparalleled empire. A people who had nothing but horses and spears, but were able to subjugate huge empires and turn the tide of the world. This is not an ordinary story of conquest and destruction, but rather a tale of ambition and strategic intelligence. Imagine with me. You are in the vast Mongolian plains. You see nothing but the distant horizon, bitter cold and open sky. Here, among these difficult terrains, live the Mongol people. They had neither great wealth nor regular armies, only their horses, spears, and some sheep. At that time, no one would have believed that these nomadic herders would soon become an unstoppable force. But how did this happen? And how did this people become masters of the world in less than a generation? It all started with a child born in 1162, named Temujin, who later became known as Genghis Khan. You might think that his story of rise was full of easy victories, but the reality was completely different. Temujin lived a childhood full of conflicts and pain. His father was poisoned by a rival tribe, and his family was forced to flee and stay in the forests. This was the beginning of Temujin. But from the midst of this chaos, Temujin began to show his genius, where he decided not to be a victim, but to be the victor. At an early age, he began to unite the warring tribes, using a combination of force and smart alliances. It wasn't easy, but he soon became the man feared by all the tribes of Mongolia. Temujin was adept at using psychological warfare, as he knew how to instill fear in the hearts of his enemies before the battle began. His reputation as an invincible leader spread quickly, and this fear was a more effective weapon than spears and swords. After a while of his conquests, the big moment came. Temujin declared himself Genghis Khan, the only and first leader of the Mongols, and his plan was more than just uniting tribes. He had a vision of conquering the entire world. What did he do? And how did he manage to build an empire that stretched from East Asia to Europe? First, they relied on speed and surprise. The Mongols were not just skilled cavalry archers, they were an army that moved at an amazing speed. The horse was their deadly weapon. Every Mongolian knight had an extraordinary skill in fighting on horseback, and he could shoot arrows with terrible accuracy while in rapid motion. They did not have a fixed battlefield, but they moved quickly like a storm, striking hard and then disappearing in the blink of an eye. One of the tactics they used skillfully was the feigned retreat. Mongol soldiers would feign defeat, then retreat quickly, luring the enemy into pursuit. At an unexpected moment, they would return to surprise the enemy with a sweeping attack. This tactic was extremely effective, and many armies fell into deadly traps. The amazing thing is that the Mongols were smart in using technology. It is true that they were nomads who relied on horses and spears, but they were not behind in using modern technology. After their invasion of China, they learned the secrets of siege and used them to conquer fortified cities in the West. They brought with them engineers from China and benefited from the experiences of the peoples they conquered to develop advanced siege machines. Such as catapults and burning oil, these machines were made with high precision and helped them achieve victory in seemingly impossible battles. Thus, the castles and huge walls were no longer an obstacle to the Mongols. Speaking of the attack on the Chinese Jin Empire, This happened in 1211, and this was the first major Mongol campaign against the Jin Empire. At that time, Jin was considered one of the greatest and most powerful empires. Its walls were towering, its cities were fortified, and its armies were huge, but the Mongols did not care about all of that. Although they were outnumbered, they used their tactical intelligence to penetrate the Chinese defense lines. In 1215, Beijing fell to the Mongols after a long siege, but this was just the beginning. When the Mongols finished with China, they did not. They're done. In 1219, Genghis Khan turned his army toward Khwarezm, a powerful Islamic empire stretching from Iran to Central Asia. Khwarezm was a rich trading state, but what they did may have been the greatest strategic mistake in history. The Sultan of Khwarezm killed some of Genghis Khan's ambassadors, angering him. The result was devastating. Genghis Khan sent a huge army to besiege the Khwarezmian cities. Once again, the Mongols used their ingenious tactics of speed and surprise. City after city fell to the sword of the Mongols. Sometimes, cities surrendered without a fight. Due to the panic, the Mongols were spreading everywhere. In 1220, the famous city of Bukhara was destroyed. It is said that Genghis Khan stood before the city's inhabitants. and said, "I am the punishment of God. If you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you." And this was not the only incident. One of the most powerful stories worth mentioning is the story of the fall of Baghdad. In 1258, led by Hulagu Khan, the grandson of Genghis Khan, the Mongols headed towards the capital of the Abbasid Caliphate, Baghdad. At that time, Baghdad was considered the center of the Islamic world, a great city of science, art, and culture. But the Mongols did not care about all that. After a brutal siege, they stormed Baghdad, killed tens of thousands of its inhabitants, and burned libraries and schools. This fall was a huge shock to the Islamic world, and a sign of the invincible power of the Mongols. But do you really know what is amazing about the Mongols? Despite all the killing and destruction they committed, they enjoyed a kind of religious tolerance. Genghis Khan himself believed that all religions should be respected. In their vast empire, Muslims, Christians, and Buddhists lived side by side. The Mongols did not impose a specific religion on the peoples they conquered, but rather allowed them to practice their rituals freely. This clever policy helped them maintain their control over the different peoples. Although the Mongols were fierce warriors, they knew how to take advantage of skills and expertise. They employed scholars and craftsmen from all cultures. Chinese engineers, Persian doctors, and even European merchants all worked in the service of the Mongols. This fusion of cultures helped the Mongols build a diverse and powerful empire. But all this greatness did not last forever. After the death of Genghis Khan, the Mongol Empire began to disintegrate. Power struggles between his sons and grandsons led to the division of the empire into 4 great Khanates: the Great Khanate in Mongolia, the Chagatai Khanate, the Golden Horde Khanate in Russia, and the Ilkhanate in the Middle East. These divisions weakened the empire over time. In addition, the Mongols relied heavily on military force and did not develop a strong administrative system to manage this vast empire. As attacks from abroad increased, the Khanates began to fall one by one. But the Mongol legacy lives on, despite the demise of the empire. But the Mongols' influence lasted for centuries. The trade routes they established via the Silk Road continued to connect the East and the West. Even their military ideas are still studied today in military academies. The story of the Mongols is one of an amazing transformation from simple nomadic tribes to a great power. It is a lesson in power, strategy, and smart alliances. But it is also a reminder that empires, no matter how great, do not last if they do not maintain their cohesion. Finally, before I leave you with a question, I ask you to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to receive all that is new. And the question is, in your opinion, were the Mongols just destructive invaders, or were they geniuses in building one of the greatest empires in history?